Hi, my name is Sound, and I'm going to be going over my stamina DK build. I'm going to go over different aspects in terms of how the rotation is handled, what kind of content you can expect yourself to see in, as well as just different ways you can tweak it to make it more modified for your play style. I'll also link in the description below my build in a worded format so that you can go there and check that out and see the different gear options that you can switch out. So let's start ahead and then just jump straight into the aspects that we're going to be parsing with today. We're actually going to be using a standard parse setup. As you can see here on my alpha gear, I have different loadouts. So this one that I'm going to be clicking on here will be loading in my parse setup, which I'll go over here. This is a heavy attack rotation build. So basically it goes Venomous Claw, light, Noxious Breath, light, Shadow Silk, light, Wrecking Blow before 50%, light, twice with a heavy follow-up. And then we'll do Endless Hail, light, Molten Armaments as needed, light, Flames of Oblivion as needed, light attack. And by then, every time you get that pulled up, you should have a free Molten Whip. And while Molten Whip is a magical setup move, it is going to give us Seething Fury, which is going to give us more weapon and spell damage for 60 seconds. And we'll have that up between the rotations. And then we'll Barb Trapped as needed as well too. While you're parsing, you're going to want to use the Dawnbreaker. You're going to want to open up with your standard. I'm using shifting just because I do a lot of group content, but it would be better for you to have the empowered standard if you want to see a true sense of a parse. I have a 6 mil right next to me, and I'm just going to show you the different things I do. First, I'm going to get my ulti generated up. So I'm going to get on my good pots here. And we're just going to beat up this poor precursor here a few times. And this is just to get my ulti all maxed out. This isn't just to, like, test anything out or anything. 2 heavies, and back swap. So if this were like a parse, I would have swapped to the back. So then the next thing we're going to do here, now that my back bar is still not done, we're just going to wait for the precursor to come back. Sometimes you'll have to do it a couple of times. That's okay. And the build's pretty easy in the sense like you can queue your move up while you're waiting for the heavy wind up, which makes it super accessible. And you're definitely going to make sure that you're going to hit all those moves that you should. One thing that if you are doing parsing tests, you want to make sure you move your dots off before the dummy comes back. That way you're not going to run into any dummy issues in terms of like being stuck in combat. So we're going to put some food on, and then I'm just going to walk you through the parse nice and slow. So one of the most important things to do is to make sure you're pre-buff. You're going to have your potion rolling. Then you're just going to drop your dots like normal. And then bar swap, light, dot, dot, light, dot, light. And then heavy into your Wrecking Blow. Heavy into the Wrecking Blow. And then you're going to back swap. And then we need Oblivion again. And then we have a whip. And then we're going to go ahead and drop our trap. And then we're going to light, dot, light dot, light dot, and then heavy into the Wrecking Blow, and then heavy into our second Wrecking Blow, and then we're going to bar swap. We're going to light dot, then we get another whip, then we're going to put a trap down, and then we just refresh our dots, and then we do this a couple of times. We'll do this till he dies. At 50%, however, or instead of doing Wrecking Blow, we're going to follow it up with Executioner, actually. And one of the most important things that you just saw me do is making sure that you're using your potion on your bar swap with your ulti. You can also do it at the beginning of your rotation to get the most out of your dots as well too. It's whenever that your timing is. Every other rotation you should be doing all buffs. It times out really nicely that the dots up the top of the front bar with the Venomous Claw and the Noxious Breath. So you shouldn't be worrying about too much with not having dots fall off. Then we do another flames. We got a whip. And then we're going to go back here. And then we're going to heavy into this. As you see, my potion is up and my ulti is up. So I'm going to pop my potion, ulti, and then bar swap. And then we're going to do another flame and a whip. And this time we're going to need a trap. And it looks like I'm off skills, so it's okay. And then we're going to do that. And now we're below 50%, so it's time for Executioner. And then we just go back and then we refresh our dots just like before. And again, we're just going to do 2 heavies. And instead of using Wrecking Blow, we're going to use Executioner. So we go into it, heavy Executioner, heavy Executioner. And then we go back to the back. Flames of Oblivion, Molten Whip. We're going to ignore the trap this time. And then we do our dots, light, dot, light, and then heavy into the Executioner. And heavy into the Executioner again. And then we're going to drink our potion, ulti, and then bar swap. And then this time we need all our buffs. Basically, you should be seeing it every other where you'll need all your buffs. And that's going to give you more Hawkeye, which will make you do more damage on your front bar too. You should have at least 3 to 4 Hawkeye every time you rotate. And Hawkeye is the buff that you get when you light attack on the bow. There we go. And then we go into Executioner and go into Executioner. There we go. Looks like I missed a light attack, so that's okay. And then we're going to go heavy into this, and then heavy into this. Then I'm going to pop my potion, and then I'm going to ulti. Then we're back here. We're rebuffing. We got a whip, so we have our buff now. Get our different dots going. There we go. And then we're going to heavy into this, and heavy into Executioner again. And it looks like we probably have one more rotation with less than 5% going. Which is good. There we go. And he's down. And we got a solid 27.4k off of that by just, you know, just doing a casual heavy rotation build. This is all self buff. Let me go into what I'm wearing. I was wearing Celine's, Hunding's, and then a crafted New Moon Acolyte with a back bar Maelstrom normal. Now when I was testing this on the PTS, of course, you're going to want, if you want a trial setup, you'll go with something like Two-Throw and Yondir, or even something like Zogden's Warband if you wanted to drop Trap and added some more resources. The build will go into different aspects that you can update your gear setup, of course. For right now, the way when I have it on live, I have a single target setup, which I'll wear Celine's, Hunding's, and then Moon Acolyte, which I'll eventually upgrade into Yondir. And then for an AoE setup, I have Hunding's, Veladrith, and Venomous. I will eventually upgrade the Hundings into Morag Tong. Morag Tong is going to provide the group more utility, and it's going to make the Venomous, as well as all your venom and disease-based damage, do more damage. We don't need anything like Stormfist, which is why we use Veladrith. However, if you don't have access to Cradle of Shadows and you need an AoE setup, you can't go wrong with Stormfist as well as Celestrix. Celestrix is in a base dungeon, and Stormfist is also in a base dungeon. Celestrix will provide you with more stamina and do AoE damage based off of that comes up from the ground. Stormfist will give you some more regen, and then we'll do a little closing fist that bursts damage on the target. Both are really good options. I went with Veladrith for my ultimate build in the long run because the crit will benefit more with the build. And then for my VMA setup, I run with Celine's, Hunding's, and Griffinheart, which I will eventually upgrade into Zogden's Warband. And the reason why we do this is because we don't run with a trap, and we want to get that minor expedition that the Griffins and the Zogdens provides for us. And on the front bar, we'll run with the standard dots. You can even drop this Shadow Silk and slot in, say, Silver Leash. That will draw in adds closer to you as a melee. And you can back bar here the Endless Hail the molten armaments, the flames of oblivion. The volatile armor is going to give us more protection and a little bit of a bursty AoE that will pop off of us. And of course, we go with the selfish vigor for VMA. Here is another option that you can pick for yourself with Carve. Carve is one of the morphs for the AoE swing that the two-handed build can get. The reason why I went with Carve is because I feel sufficiently protected with volatile armor and resolving vigor. However, if you feel like you're a little squishy, you can actually remorph this into a morph called Brawler. And Brawler is going to give you just a little bit more protection. You can also remorph, instead of the Flawless Dawnbreaker, you can go with the Smiting, which will stun everything that you hit. And that's going to provide your group with a little bit more utility in terms of like the mobs are stunned. So it's really good to do after the tank has drawn everything into a stack, or if you're doing VMA by yourself. The other reason why, so let's go back into like single target and AoE. This is what I'm going to be running with in a trial or group command situation. The AoE, I usually slap that on, and until we get to a boss, I might even just leave it on even on the boss, to be honest. We like the Shadow Silk, especially with the dad build setup, because we're providing a little bit more utility to the group. We also like providing the banner to the group as well too. Of course, you can do empowered. I just like the shifting, just because we're always moving. I run with a very fast group that goes around everywhere, so I can often get a couple of banner drops in more than one pool, for example. But if the empowered is going to be where you want in trial situations. So in terms of like keeping things static, you can't go wrong with shifting. But if you like optimizing and tweaking your build for the best possible content that you're going with, you want to at least shift your shifting standard to an empowered when you're doing veteran content as well as 12-man content, just to provide a little bit more utility. And if I were doing this in a trial setup, to be honest, with it being a dad build, I would probably still wear Morag Tong and then either Warband or New Moon. You can't go wrong with that with it. It just depends on if you're going with a trapless setup or not. And of course, Venomous on Trash would be best. This provides a lot of critical damage, and then after you do crit, you're going to put poison damage on a singular target, and the poison radiates off of that target even after they're dead. It lasts for 10 seconds, and it poisons all those enemies. So if you're wearing something like Morag Tong, that's going to proc on all the enemies as well too, to make more damage. So you also provide your group with a lot of extra free damage, especially if you're running with a lot more stamina than, say, Magicka in your group. But that's pretty much the basis of the build. As far as like champion points and CP, I use like different other content creators like ESO University. You can check them out. And then as far as like Mundus, I run with Shadow just because my crit sits over 50%. However, if you're running something like Maelstrom Arena, you can pop on Lover, and you're going to get more penetration and burn things a lot easier. As far as food goes, we're going to go with the blue food just to get the more max stats and value. However, if you feel you need more regen, you can go with Camoran Throne, which is the purple food that gives you a little bit of health, a little bit of stamina, and stamina regen. Or you can go with the Clockwork Citrus if you do have the means to, if you feel like you need that as well too. But as far as value and ease of access, blue food's going to get you where you want to go. And then I play a Bosmer, so I just put 1 health in Magicka just to make sure that I can keep up my buffs and debuffs. Otherwise, if you feel comfortable with your sustain in terms of keeping your buffs, debuffs going, then you can switch it over to all dumped into Stam. You have to pay attention to your races when you kind of do this. For example, if you're a Khajiit, you're going to get a lot more out of Shadow than you would say any other stat, as long as your crit's over 50%. If you're playing a Dunmer, you might not even need to put anything in Magicka at all, and you can just have 63 in stamina. If you have all your Undaunted and you're like, yeah, I feel good with 17k hit points, then you don't even need to put anything into health either. You get more value putting everything into stamina in terms, especially with heavy attack builds, because you get more off of the maximum swing that you do for that attack. That's why stacking things like max stamina, as well as getting more crit out to make those heavy hits hit for harder, is going to give you much more positive reinforcement with the build. But other than that, that's pretty much how I run it. I kind of flex between what kind of content I'm doing, but the rotation and just a couple of moves tweak out. Everything's pretty easy to access. If you click on the link below, it'll show you all the different sets that you can get between crafted sets, as well as like 4-man content sets and even trial sets once you're ready to upgrade into that. So don't be afraid to explore content. Don't be afraid to try a heavy attack build if that's easier for you to get weaving in different attack combinations. And definitely enjoy the content that ESO has to offer. I hope you have a lot of fun, and definitely give me feedback on your experience with a heavy attack build. You have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.